Welcome back to the deep dive. We like to go deep and get our hands dirty, and today we're tackling something pretty critical for you as a Marine, MCDP 6. It's the Marine Corps Doctrine on Command and Control. Essentially, it's your roadmap in the chaos of combat. It's about making decisions and taking action when things get intense.
Exactly. And while we haven't worn the uniform ourselves, we've been digging deep into MCDP 6, trying to pull out,
Yeah.
those nuggets of wisdom that could really make a difference for you in the field.
Yeah, think of this deep dive as a training resource to really solidify your understanding of how the Marine Corps thinks and operates, especially when things get really hairy.
And one of the things that MCDP 6 really starts off strong with is the ODA loop.
Mm.
That's not just a cool acronym. This is really a fundamental concept for how Marines gain an advantage
Yeah.
in any conflict.
Okay, so break it down for us. What does ODA stand for and how does it work in practice?
So ODA stands for Observe, Orient, Decide, Act. It's a cycle, a loop. And the key to it is cycling through it faster than your enemy. Imagine two fighters squaring off. Whoever can assess the situation, make sense of it, and act decisively while the other guy's still trying to figure out what's happening. That's the one that wins.
Yeah, it's all about disrupting the enemy's decision-making process while you're staying
Yeah.
ahead of the curve. That totally makes sense in a one-on-one fight.
Yeah.
But what about on a larger scale with all the information flying around
Yeah.
and all the chaos?
Well, that's where MCDP 6 gets even more interesting. It introduces this idea of an information hierarchy. So recognizing that not all information is created equal.
So it's not just about gathering intel. It's about filtering the noise and
Yeah.
figuring out what really matters.
Exactly. You're on the right path. So MCDP 6 breaks information down into 4 classes: raw data, processed data, knowledge, and understanding. And raw data is like, that flood of signals, radio chatter, what you see, reports coming in. It's the unfiltered stuff.
Okay, so processed data. Would that be like that raw intel that's been organized
Yeah.
and analyzed and maybe plotted on a map or
You
something?
got it. Precisely. But even processed data
Yeah.
isn't the end goal. You need to take that data and turn it into knowledge. So evaluate its reliability. Is this good data? Figure out, is it relevant to your mission?
Knowledge is power. But MCDP 6 goes even further. It talks about reaching, understanding. So what does that actually look like in a combat situation?
Understanding really is the holy grail here. Imagine you're a platoon commander, you know where the enemy is, you know their strength, that's knowledge. But understanding is grasping, WHY. They're there. What are their goals? What are they going to do next?
It's connecting the dots
Yeah.
and seeing the bigger picture so you can
Yeah.
anticipate threats and make decisions that will actually put you in a position of advantage.
Okay.
This is where it gets really interesting for me. MCDP 6 brings up this concept called image theory, which, I don't know, it sounds a little out there.
It might sound abstract, but it is incredibly practical. So NCDP 6 recognizes that. People think in images, mental pictures. And on the battlefield, having a clear mental picture that kudoi is crucial.
So a commander who can actually visualize the battlefield, the terrain, enemy positions, the movement of friendly forces, they have a serious edge.
They have a serious edge, absolutely. Think about it. If you can see the battlefield in your mind's eye, you can anticipate problems, identify opportunities, and direct your Marines with precision. But MCDP 6 also acknowledges that forming an accurate image can be tough. Information can be distorted, delayed, incomplete, fog of war, and all that.
You're relying on reports from others. Things are happening really fast. There's a lot of pressure. How do you overcome those obstacles to get a clear picture?
Well, MCDP 6 offers a few tactics. One is for commanders to get firsthand observations whenever possible, see things with their own eyes, get a feel for the situation on the ground.
And nothing beats being in the thick of it to understand what's really going on. But in a large-scale operation, a commander can't be everywhere at once.
You're right, and that's where MCDP 6 introduces this concept of a directed telescope. So it's about having a dedicated observer, maybe a trusted subordinate or a specific sensor, focused on a particular area or event. They report directly to the commander, bypassing the usual chain of command to minimize delays and potential distortion.
So it's like having a direct line to the most critical information, almost like a real-time feed from a crucial point on the battlefield.
That's a great way to put it.
But it's important to clarify that this doesn't replace the normal chain of command.
Right. It's a supplemental tool. Commanders still need to rely on their staff, their subordinate leaders, and the established communication networks.
So MCDP 6 is encouraging this balance between getting a detailed view
Yeah.
through tools like directed telescopes,
Yeah.
but also maintaining that essential big picture perspective. And that must be a constant challenge for commanders,
Yeah.
especially as you move up in rank.
Absolutely. A squad leader or a fighter pilot can grasp all those perspectives pretty easily because they're right there in the action. But for higher level commanders, it's a different story. They have to reconcile the close-up view they might get from the front lines with the broader strategic picture they see from their command post or headquarters. It's almost like looking through different lenses at the same time.
Yeah, trying to hold both those perspectives simultaneously.
Mhm.
And I'm also noticing how MCDP6 consistently emphasizes the human element of command and control. It's not just about technology or procedures. It's about leadership, trust, understanding.
Absolutely. You know, that leads us to another crucial aspect of MCDP6, the command and control spectrum.
Okay. And this is where we get into the nitty-gritty of how orders are given and executed, right?
Yes, you got it. So MCDP6 lays out two contrasting approaches: detailed command and control and mission command and control. Detailed command and control favors tight reins and explicit instructions. The commander is firmly in control, dictating every move.
Okay. So what about the other end of the spectrum?
That's where we find mission command and control, which is all about empowering subordinates and relying heavily on their initiative.
So instead of micromanaging every detail,
Yeah,
you're setting the overall objective and trusting your Marines to figure out the best way to achieve it.
precisely. You're giving them the freedom to adapt, improvise, and make decisions on the fly based on their understanding of the situation. Now, considering what we've discussed about the Marine Corps ethos, adaptability, initiative, leadership from every level, which approach do you think MCDP 6 favors?
I'm going to guess mission command and control. It seems to align perfectly with everything we've been talking about.
Yeah, you nailed it. MCDP 6 explicitly states that mission command and control is the preferred approach for the Marine Corps.
Yeah, okay, I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together. We've gone from the ODA loop, which is about individual decision-making, to this idea of mission command and control, which is about empowering an entire organization to operate effectively in a chaotic environment.
That's a great observation. And this is just the foundation. MCDP 6 goes on to apply these principles to leadership, planning, organization, and communication. We'll dive into those in more detail next. So let's dive into those a little bit, those critical elements, starting with leadership as envisioned by MCDP 6.
You know, at the end of the day, battles are won by Marines, not just by technology or strategies.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You can have all the firepower in the world, but without effective leadership, it all falls apart.
So how does MCDP6 approach leadership, especially in the context of mission command and control?
Well, it really boils down to two core principles: empowering subordinates and fostering initiative. It's about creating an environment where Marines, at all levels, feel confident making decisions and taking action, even when they don't have specific orders for every situation.
That requires a lot of trust from the commander. You're basically saying, I trust you to make the right call, even when I'm not there to hold your hand.
That's right. But that trust is absolutely essential for mission success. When Marines know they have the freedom to act, they can react faster, adapt to changing conditions, and seize opportunities. That might be missed if they were waiting for orders from above.
And I imagine that could be a little bit of a shift for some leaders. You know, it's one thing to give orders. It's another thing to truly empower your Marines to make decisions on their own.
It is, but MCDP 6 recognizes that in the chaos of combat, there simply isn't time for a commander to micromanage every detail. The Marines on the ground, they're the ones who have the best understanding of the immediate situation. They need to be able to act decisively without hesitation.
So NCDP6 is really trying to cultivate a culture of proactive, independent thinking within the Marine Corps.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And that leads directly into the next element: planning. So MCDP 6 emphasizes that plans shouldn't be rigid. They shouldn't be treated like a script that you have to follow no matter what.
So it's not about creating this elaborate plan
Yeah.
that tries to account for every possible scenario.
Right. No plan survives first contact with the enemy, as they say. MCDP 6 stresses the importance of flexibility, the ability to adapt and adjust your plan on the fly based on new information or unforeseen challenges.
You know, that reminds me of a quote from General Eisenhower. Plans are worthless, but planning is everything.
Yeah.
It's the process of thinking things through, anticipating challenges, developing a framework for action. That's what really matters, not necessarily the plan itself.
You got it. MCDP 6 isn't saying that planning is useless. It's saying that the true value of planning lies in the preparation it provides, the shared understanding it creates among the team, and the mental agility it fosters. You're going into the mission with a solid plan, but you're also prepared mentally and practically to deviate from that plan when necessary.
This is really hitting home for me. It's all about being adaptable, responsive, ready for anything.
Right, and to be adaptable, you need to have a solid organizational structure. That's the next key element that MCDP 6 addresses.
I would assume that, clear lines of responsibility, a well-defined chain of command, that's all pretty essential in a military organization.
Absolutely. But MCDP 6 also recognizes that organizations need to be flexible too. You can't have a rigid hierarchy that stifles initiative or prevents information from flowing freely. It's about finding that sweet spot, having a clear structure while also allowing for adaptability.
So it's not just about individuals following orders. It's about teams working together to accomplish the mission.
Exactly. MCDP 6 emphasizes the importance of teams, not just individuals. Each unit, from a fire team to a battalion, should function as a cohesive unit, with everyone understanding their role and working together to achieve the commander's intent.
It's starting to paint a picture of a very dynamic, responsive force, one that can adapt, overcome, and achieve the mission, even in the most complex and challenging environments.
That's a great way to put it. And to be that responsive, you need clear, effective communication. That's another cornerstone of MCDP 6.
I can only imagine how crucial communication is on the battlefield. Lives depend on it.
Absolutely. MCDP 6 stresses the importance of transmitting information quickly, accurately, and in a way that everyone can understand.
But there's more to it than just giving orders and receiving reports right. There's this idea of implicit communication that we touched on earlier.
Yes, you're right. MCDP 6 highlights the importance of implicit communication, that unspoken understanding that develops among Marines who've trained and fought together. Think of it as a shared intuition, a sixth sense that comes from shared experiences and mutual trust.
So you're saying that shared experiences and a deep understanding of each other can sometimes communicate more than words ever could.
It happens all the time in combat. A simple nod, a hand signal, a brief phrase, these can speak volumes when everyone is on the same page. Implicit communication reduces the need for lengthy explanations and speeds up the decision-making process.
It sounds almost telepathic.
Well, maybe not quite telepathic, but it's about building that level of trust and rapport where Marines can practically anticipate each other's actions and work together instinctively.
So MCDP 6 is saying that communication is more than just transmitting data. It's about building relationships, fostering that deeper level of understanding within the unit.
Exactly. It recognizes that human connection is just as important as technical proficiency when it comes to effective command and control. It's about building a team that's more than just a collection of individuals. It's about creating a unit that operates as a single, cohesive entity.
This is all fascinating. But I'm also curious about how MCDP 6 addresses the actual process of decision-making, especially under pressure. We've talked about principles and concepts, but what about the practical application of those ideas when things get real?
Well, that's where decision-making theory comes in. MCDP 6 outlines two primary methods, analytical and intuitive.
Okay. I'm guessing analytical decision-making is about weighing the pros and cons, carefully considering all the options, and making a calculated choice.
You got it. It's a very deliberate, systematic approach. But as you can imagine, it can be time-consuming, which isn't always ideal on the battlefield.
Right. So what's the alternative when time is of the essence?
That's where intuitive decision-making comes in. It's about relying on experience, judgment, and gut feeling to make quick decisions.
But wouldn't relying on intuition be inherently risky? Especially in a complex, high-stakes situation? Seems like there needs to be some balance.
You're right. MCDP 6 recognizes that there's a time and place for both approaches. Analytical decision-making is valuable when you have the time to thoroughly assess the situation. But in the heat of battle, when every second counts, sometimes you have to trust your instincts, especially when those instincts have been honed through years of training and real-world experience.
So it's not just about blindly following your gut. It's about recognizing patterns, drawing on your past knowledge, and making a judgment call based on a deep, almost instinctive understanding of the situation.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It's not about throwing caution to the wind. It's about having the confidence to make a rapid decision when the situation demands it, knowing that you've put in the work to develop that intuitive sense of what needs to be done.
This deep dive into MCDP 6 is really highlighting the complexity of command and control in the modern battle space.
Yeah, it is complex. It's about balancing information management, leadership styles, planning methods, organizational structures, and communication techniques, all while operating in a dynamic, constantly changing environment.
It's a lot to process.
Yeah.
But it feels incredibly relevant.
Yeah.
MCDP 6 lays out a framework for thinking and acting They can be applied at every level, from a fire team leader to a battalion commander.
Exactly. That's exactly the point. MCDP 6 is designed to be a practical guide for every Marine, regardless of their rank or specific role.
So what's the most important takeaway for our listener? A Marine who's looking to apply these principles to their own career.
That's a great question. I think the most important takeaway is that MCDP 6, it's not just a set of rules
Hmm.
or procedures. It's really more of a philosophy of command and control. It's about embracing uncertainty, empowering your subordinates, fostering initiative, and,
Mhm.
constantly seeking to improve your understanding of the battlefield.
So it's a mindset. It's a way of thinking and acting that applies not only to combat situations,
There.
but also to training exercises, planning sessions,
Mm.
and even your day-to-day interactions within your unit.
Absolutely. It should inform your decisions, your
Hmm.
leadership style, your approach to problem solving in every aspect of your Marine Corps career.
So MCDP 6 is something that
Yeah.
you should be thinking about all the time, not just when you're in the field or planning an operation.
Exactly.
Earlier, we talked about, that spectrum of command and control styles. You have detailed command on one end and mission command on the other.
Right. And remember, MCDP 6 makes it clear that the Marine Corps favors mission command. It's about trusting your Marines to make the right call based on their training, experience, and understanding of the commander's intent.
But that doesn't mean commanders just sit back and let things happen.
No, absolutely not. They're responsible for setting clear objectives, communicating the overall strategy,
Right.
and fostering that culture of trust and mutual understanding within the unit.
MCDP 6 talks about this concept of unity of effort. What does that actually look like in practice?
So unity of effort is really about having everybody working together seamlessly, even when they're dispersed, facing unexpected challenges, and operating with limited information. So imagine a company-sized operation with multiple platoons spread out over a wide area. Each platoon might be facing different challenges and making decisions independently, but they're all working towards a common goal with a shared understanding of the commander's intent.
So it's not just about following orders blindly. It's about understanding the bigger picture, taking initiative to achieve the mission,
Right.
even if it means deviating from the original plan.
Exactly. It's about adaptability, initiative, and trust, all those principles that MCDP 6 emphasizes.
And that brings us back to implicit communication, that ability to convey meaning and coordinate actions without relying solely on words.
Yes. Implicit communication is incredibly powerful. It allows Marines who've developed that deep level of trust and understanding to operate with incredible speed and efficiency, especially in those chaotic, fast-paced situations where every second counts.
Yeah, it's fascinating to think about. It's almost like a sixth sense that develops
Yeah.
among Marines who have trained and fought together.
Yeah. It's a combination of experience, shared knowledge, and that deep understanding of each other's strengths and weaknesses.
It makes me think about those stories of elite military units, like the Navy SEALs or the Army Special Forces, where communication is so streamlined, it's almost telepathic.
Yeah, and that level of communication doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, training, and shared experiences to build that kind of rapport.
Right, but the payoff is immense when you have a team that can operate that smoothly,
I was very
especially in high-pressure situations.
Absolutely. It's a force multiplier. It allows you to achieve things that would be impossible for a group of individuals acting independently.
So MCDP 6 is really about building more than just a fighting force. It's about building a team, a cohesive unit that's greater than the sum of its parts.
Well said. I think that's a great place to wrap up our deep dive into MCDP 6.
I hope this deep dive has given you a solid understanding of this vital doctrine. It's a lot to take in, but it's worth revisiting and exploring further as you progress in your Marine Corps career.
And as you continue your journey with MCDP 6, here's a final thought to ponder. How will you apply these concepts to become a more effective Marine leader and decision maker? Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. Translating these principles into action on the battlefield, in the training area, and in every aspect of your service.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. We'll catch you next time.